All right. Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. Nick Morrow here with Occupy Fantasy. As always, helping you break down today's UFC slate from a betting perspective, from a fight breakdown perspective, and from a DraftKings and FanDuel perspective. As always, I'm going to go through fight by fight, kind of give you guys my leans on each matchup, how I think the fights are going to go. We'll do that within the context of DFS using the Occupy Fantasy tools. I have the model pulled up on another screen. And yeah, at the end of the video, we'll go through some best bets. We had a week off last week, which is always nice. But prior to that, went 4-1 on the best bets. It also hit 2 out of 4 long shots, so really a profitable week. Really good performance there from the entire Occupied team. But yeah, fun card here, and it starts at noon Eastern Standard Time. With the NFL starting this week, we did adjust a few things, so that's why I'm here live right now. So if you could, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. That helps us get more free content like this out to you on a regular basis. Also, if you don't mind, comment below, comment on the video. If you guys have any questions, happy to get those into you. And as always, got to plug the Occupy tools behind the paywall. Just $7 as an entry point to get into our premium content. You could get access to the model, slate breakdown, which is the daily plug written by Derek Phillips, which is already live for today. We also have ownership projections and the lineup builder for those of you who are looking to mass multi-enter your lineup. So again, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. But yeah, card starts in less than 2 hours, so let's get right into it here. Yeah, our first fight we're going to go to here is the main event between Nasruddin Imavov and Cal Baralho. Imavov is a French/Russian fighter. He very much represents France, though. So this fight is going to take place in front of his home crowd. Crowd will very much be behind him here. But this is a very important matchup because the winner of this could solidify themselves as being next in line for a title shot at middleweight. Recently, that title was captured by one Kamzat Chimaev. There is a fight booked. I believe it's in Vancouver. I'd have to double check on that between Renair de Ritter and Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. The winner of that or the winner of this could probably be awarded that title shot. So one could argue that they really need to put on a good performance here, whether it is Barala or Imavov getting it done. Whoever wins, a boring decision probably doesn't get you that title shot. I got to think maybe Fluffy has a really good performance against a Ritter or vice versa. But yeah, as far as DFS goes, I mean, these guys are both priced pretty much where they should be, in my opinion. I do slightly prefer the Imavov side. I'll get into that in just a minute. But right now, we're looking across the books. We're seeing Cal Barello as a slight favorite, -130, -120, depending where you look. But it should be a very competitive matchup. In some ways, it is binary. Imavov definitely the better striker. We saw him knock out Israel Adesanya, one of the best strikers in the history of the middleweight division, his last time out. He's a decent grappler, certainly not his strength though. We've seen him taken down by guys like Jared Cannonier and Brandon Allen, and he's going to be running into a better grappler here this time against Cal Barello, especially when it comes to the jiu-jitsu. The interesting thing about Barallo is last time out against Cannonier, he had that very clear path to victory via his grappling, chose not really to lean on it at all. 0 takedowns across 5 rounds. But keep in mind, this is a 5 round fight, so both these guys do have a bit of that additional appeal for DFS purposes as well. But looking at the statistics between these two, and guys, just so you know, I'm getting used to a new monitor setup. I just moved last week. I'm in a new office, which is nice. Got better computer, better monitors. Everything looks great. But it's going to take me a little bit of time to adjust. But enough about that. Imavov lands 4.4 significant strikes per minute, only absorbing 3.2. Barallo just 3.6 significant strikes per minute, absorbing 2.3. Again, the difference with Barallo are those takedowns, averaging 1.5 across 15 minutes, even though he didn't really go for any against Cannonier his last time out. Cal Barello, captain of that Fighting Nerds team, they are in a tear. Guys like Carlos Pratas, Mauricio Ruffy, who we'll talk about in a bit, Gene Silva, etc. One of the hottest camps in MMA right now. We do see this. I don't know, Killcliff had its kind of stretch for a while. Black Zillions back in the day. American Top Team had a really solid run. Hot camps stay hot for a year or two. Right now, the hottest camp in MMA are certainly these Fighting Nerds. But yeah, I guess, how do you think this fight goes? I mean, either way, I think it could be competitive. It is favored to go to the scorecards, which kind of tells you as much. But like I said, I think on the feet, Imavov the much better striker, but he's going to have to keep the fight standing. He does have a 78% takedown defense in the UFC, but again, not many guys have tried to take him down. Even earlier in his career, we've seen him taken down by the likes of guys like Phil Hawes. Obviously, not a great sign, but he's come a really long way since then. So I don't want to put too much stock into that. Personally, I think in front of his home crowd, he's going to be able to kind of find the range, probably edge 3 out of the 5 rounds, keep things standing long enough to have the bigger moments, land the bigger shots. Again, he is the higher volume striker. He lands the more powerful strikes. And while Borrallo's striking has improved, it's kind of a means to get to his grappling more often than not. He did look pretty good against Cannonier, but took a ton of damage in that fight. Imavov definitely had the cleaner performance of the two if we're just talking about how they performed against Jared. But yeah, I think it's going to be a fun, competitive main event. I think it's tough to have a really strong lean here. I do get being on the Borallo side as the superior grappler, but there is a little bit of a nuance here I do want to discuss. He cut weight for UFC 319 as the backup fighter for that Chimaev versus Duplessis fight. And historically, when guys are cutting weight twice, that's usually a very bad sign, or not a bad sign, but usually it doesn't really play well into their next performance. The example I always use, current welterweight champion Jack Della Maddalena had that fight against Basil Hafez, where he just didn't really look like himself. The main reason for that was he did cut weight twice in 2 weeks. We go back to Guram Kutudzeladze, who really struggled against Elvis Brenner. Guram turned out to just be completely overrated, but I do think him having to cut weight twice kind of played into his struggles there. And there are other examples, but yeah, Cal having to cut weight twice in 3 or 4 weeks is just not a great thing for a guy who is very big for the division, who could probably fight up at 205 if he wanted to. So yeah, I think that's enough for me to be on the Imavov side here. I think he gets it done via decision. Like I said, I think he's just going to outstrike him, have the bigger moments, maybe find the chin. Probably doesn't finish Borallo, but rocks him enough to probably convince the judges, especially in front of his home crowd, that he is the deserving winner here. All that being said, will I be surprised if Borrell was able to take him down enough to kind of secure 3 out of the 5 rounds that way? No. In a 5 round fight, I think if you're playing low risk contests, you could stack this one. Personally, I mean, I think there's enough good underdogs on this card. We also have Cal Fernandez, who's mispriced on DK, that I'm not rushing to stack this fight because if Borrell's getting his game going, Imavov's not going to score well. If Imavov's getting his game going, Burrell's probably not going to score all that well. But again, 5 round fight, there's always some merit to stacking it in low risk contests. I can certainly see it. But for me, I'm going to be more on the Imavov side. But I will say Borrello is the more popular play in DFS. Looking at ownership here, Cal Borrello, 49% projected ownership on DraftKings. None of these three in the top three in OF Index, though. But I think there's like a 15 to 20% ownership gap for Imavov. So I do like him for DFS purposes for that reason as well. But again, I think I'm going to pick Imavov. I think he squeaks it out, especially in front of his home crowd, knowing Borrello had to cut weight twice in just a couple weeks. But I can't say it's a confident play. This fight could certainly go either way. Both these guys have kind of outperformed expectations, in my opinion. But yeah, that's just kind of the state of the middleweight division today. So it is what it is. Getting into the co-main event here, we have another Fighting Nerds fighter in Mauricio Rofi. Coming off that really impressive performance against Bobby Green, in which he only landed 4 significant strikes, but they mattered. That fourth one was that spinning head kick KO. Rufi often compared to Conor McGregor because of his karate stance and his ability to find knockout shots. Very, very much a sniper. That is actually Imavov's nickname, not Ruffy's, but regardless, I think Ruffy's kind of more the sniper. Low volume at times, but when you look at the statistics, 4.5 significant strikes landed per minute isn't bad at all. The question here, though, is going to be his grappling. James Lontop in their fight did try to take him down a few times. Rufi was able to stay standing and kind of pick him apart on the feet. People are going to be hard on him for that Lontop performance, but if you remember Lontop, more than anything, this guy's just a walking chin, really tough to put away. And that fight did take place up a weight class where Lontop was much outsizing Rufi, who I think weighed in under the catch weight limit. So yeah, I don't want to put too much weight into that. No pun intended. But at the same time, Saint Denis, in spite of mixed results, has been taking on the much better level of competition. I say that his last time out though against Kyle Prepolek, that doesn't count, in my opinion. Losing to Moicano and Dustin Poirier, his 2 fights prior. But yeah, these are two guys similar in age. Saint Denis, though, has just kind of been through it, right? French Special Forces, uh, militant guy. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to dig too much into that, but this guy's been through wars both in and out of the cage. You can kind of see it on him now, though. He doesn't look as fast as he did when he broke into the promotion. Really impressive performances against Thiago Moises and Matt Frivola before that Poirier loss. Looked good early in that Poirier fight, but if you remember, he did have visible staph infection there. I do think he's a live underdog here. I do think that Rufi's grappling needs to be tested more extensively before we're slating him as a future champion or anything like that. But this is kind of the perfect test for him because Saint Denis is someone who averages more than 4 takedowns per 15 minutes. This is a 3 round fight. But when it comes to the striking, he's just so hittable. I think he's probably going to walk into a shot from Rufi. If he doesn't get this fight to the mat consistently for 3 rounds, he's probably going to be in trouble. I do think you could probably get a better price on Rufi if you're live betting, though. Right now, money line sitting around minus 150 to minus 180, depending on your book. So if you are betting on this fight, make sure you're looking at the different books that are out there. The price is definitely all over the place. I'm seeing a minus 187 in favor of Rufi, and then I'm seeing a minus 150, depending on your book. So depending on which side you're on, make sure you're doing your odds shopping. But yeah, personally, I think Saint Denis live. I think early he's going to be very dangerous. I do expect him to get takedowns. But as this fight wears on, I do think his cardio is going to fade a little bit. We even saw it in the Prepelic fight. Like that didn't go as smoothly as it should have. Struggled a little bit to keep him down and get him down. Rufi going to be tested here. He knows it. That Fighting Nerds camp, obviously, very wise to what they have to expect in this matchup. And like I said, low volume striking, going to need the KO to pay off the salary. I'm picking him to win. Is it a super confident play? No. Do I think you should have exposure to Saint Denis as an underdog? Certainly. But I do think Ruffy's the side. All right. Before we get into the feature prelim here, let me just take a look at the chat. Again, really appreciate you guys kind of tuning in here on a Saturday morning. Obviously, we got college football, first week of NFL, a lot to be excited about right now. But yeah, let's just keep plugging away here while we got the momentum. Modestas Bukauskas taking on Paul Craig. So Paul Craig was on a major losing streak. Probably would have been cut for the promotion if it wasn't for a really strange outcome his last time out. So coming into that fight against Bellato on a 3 fight losing streak, um, upkicked Bellato. At the time I thought it was kind of a clean upkick, not clean in that he was within the rule set. It was definitely illegal, but I thought he actually did knock Bellato out with that. So the fight being a no contest wasn't exactly a surprise. Upon rewatching, I mean, I do think a little bit of acting was going on. It's tough to say for sure, but yeah, nonetheless, they're letting Paul Craig return to the promotion. Modestas Bukowski is someone I've never been all that impressed with, but he is now on a 3 fight win streak over guys like Praknios, Okera, Ion Kutalaba, most impressively his last time out in a decision. Did not score well at all in that spot. Um, but this fight is about as binary as it gets, right? We have the grappler in Craig against the striker in Bukowskis. Craig is pretty much a glass cannon at this point. And Bukowskis is in a lot of ways as well. So I'd be surprised if this fight went the distance. I like Bukowskis as someone you could pay up for. But I will say, and we say this in every Paul Craig fight, he's always live to find that upset submission. So if you're looking for a very cheap value play, you don't want to go heavy on the Chalky Fernandez. I think you could do worse than a Paul Craig. But personally, yeah, I'm having trouble getting to much Paul Craig, just knowing he's way past his prime. Looking at OF Index, yeah, he's not in Bukowskis, I mean, isn't in top owned plays or topped OF index plays. So he's going to be a little bit underrepresented. And I think a lot of people are going to be getting to the Omar C's of the world, and they should. But if you're looking to get a little bit different, I don't think you could go wrong with Bukowskis. Again, I'm not all that impressed by him. He's a decent striker. He definitely has the frame for 205 pounds. He's just a little bit wishy-washy, a little bit inconsistent. This is his second stint in the UFC. He has shown a lot of improvements, but as bad as Paul Craig is, I do still consider this a step up in competition for him. And again, Craig, he hasn't looked good at all recently. But if he can somehow pull guard here, somehow get this fight to the mat, Bukowskis really hasn't faced anyone with the type of submission grappling ability that Paul Craig has. So Craig's live. Am I going to be picking him? Absolutely not. Will I have exposure to him in DFS? A little bit. I definitely prefer the Bukowski side. I think he probably gets it done in rounds one or two. But yeah, you always got to kind of include that asterisk with Paul Craig. He could maybe pull it off. Another fun matchup here we have between Balaji Oki and Mason Jones. Balaji Oki broke into the UFC with a lot of hype behind him, took out Timmy Kwamba in a tight decision, lost to Chris Duncan. That's aged incredibly well. Then the win last time out over Michael Aswell, where he did land 136 significant strikes across those 15 minutes. Aswell, though, not someone I rate all that highly. The Duncan loss is what it is. I mean, the Kwamba win decent, but Oki's one of these guys who's kind of better than the sum of his parts, if that makes sense. Pretty good striker, decent grappler offensively, but he kind of has trouble at times mixing the martial arts. Somewhat predictable in his approach. Does have very high volume, landing 7 significant strikes per minute, but also absorbing nearly 5. He's very hittable in exchanges, and while he is athletic, he is able to grapple. We've seen him reversed at times, even on his regional film against lower level opponents. Doesn't always make great decisions. And while he looks the part of a finisher, not necessarily that type of fighter, I do think he's live here against the guy Mason Jones, who's kind of similar. Good everywhere, but not necessarily great at kind of tying it all together. Coming off that win against Jeremy Stevens, where he would have been wise to get his grappling going, and he did to a point, 8 takedowns, but definitely made that fight play out a little bit closer than it needed to in front of Stevens' home crowd, kind of placated to the crowd. If he does that again here, he could be in trouble. I will say this, though, as hittable as Jones is, he does have a really solid chin. We saw it against Ludovic Klein, taking a ton of damage in that fight. Mike Davis taking a ton of damage in that fight as well. This guy's head is an absolute block, which is a good thing for him here against the fighter Inoki, who I do think could start to fade as this fight wears on. More than anything, though, I think he needs to lead on his grappling. Jones does average more than 4 takedowns per 15 minutes, which is definitely significant to me. He's going to be the pick for me here, but these are two volatile fighters who I think have room to improve. Could we see a better version of Oki? Certainly. Could we see a better version of Jones? Certainly. Will we? Maybe, probably not. If we're going to expect what we've seen recently out of these two, I do think Jones is the side, but Oki is another underdog I think is worth considering. But yeah, I don't think either of these guys are going to be showing up as top plays or top owned plays. No. And again, just to kind of recap this a little bit, Saint Denis is the most popular underdog on the card. I forgot to kind of highlight this 40% owned. So if you're playing Roofy, you do need that KO to pay off that salary. Probably a knockdown or two would be nice as well. But it's a great leverage point. And yeah, Roofy himself is pretty popular as well. So it's not that great of a leverage point, I guess. Both these guys are popular. Maybe just don't play this fight. And I know that sounds gross, but at the same time, I mean, it's tough to get different if you're not leaving out the main event, if you're not leaving out Cal Fernandez on DK. So to me, maybe a little bit less of the co-main is the way to go. But let's keep plugging along here, guys. Obviously, we got a lot of fights still to get to. Reese McKee here taking on the first of several newcomers to the promotion in Axel Sola. Reese McKee did finally get that elusive UFC win his last time out. This is another fighter who is on his second stint with the promotion, another fighter who is coming over from Cage Warriors. That win over Frunza pretty much took on a heavy bag in that fight, right? I don't rate that Frunza kid at all. He had 3 knockdowns, kept putting him down. It was actually a doctor's stoppage at the end of the first round, and we saw McKee fading a little bit at the end of that round, so it was nice to see. Prior to that, losses to Chidi Njokuani, Angelusa, Alex Morono, Kamzat Chimaev. Tough to get too hard on him for any of those, but notably, Alex Morono took him down 3 times. Angelusa took him down several times. Reese McKee, tall for the division. Call him Skeletor for a reason. He's lanky. But his defensive grappling does leave a lot to be desired. So Axel Sola here, pretty interesting prospect in my opinion. Definitely has plenty of flaws of his own. Um, Fighting primarily for Eris FC, which is kind of the main regional promotion in France. I'm just pulling up some of my notes on my other screen here. 10-0-1 professional record, mostly well-rounded. He does find most of success at striking range. But I do think he is the better grappler in this matchup. And I think he could choose to lean on that a little bit here if his team is putting a good game plan behind him. At the same time, I mean, debut. We've seen this time and time again. It's tough for some of these guys when they first get under the UFC lights to perform to their potential. Also, with the crowd here cheering, wanting to see violence, wanting to see blood, maybe he's reluctant to lean on that grappling. But I do think he could outclass McKee as striking range. I'm just concerned about him in the clinch. I think McKee is live here, another underdog you can circle. I'm going to go with Sola. I've actually been pretty impressed on his regional tape compared to some of the other newcomers we have on this card. He's a southpaw too, which kind of gives a tough look to McKee. Um, Again, the body kick's going to be open there for Sola, something he does like to lean on a little bit. Yeah, McKee, I mean, it is a step up in competition for Sola, but not a big one at all. I like the win for McKee last time out. Just not someone I rate at all, though, if we're being completely honest. A low confidence play. I'm not going to sit here and say you need to play a ton of Sola. He's not going to be a best bet for me or anything like that. But I do think he has the more well-rounded game. And McKee's just so hittable, and it does seem like he fades in most of his fights. Generally durable, but I think he takes a lot of damage here. My pick's going to be Sola by decision. Let's keep plugging away. Let's see here. Appreciate you guys. Shouts out Brian. Um, Boss man here. Definitely appreciate you. And yeah, Ain Kiv ASMR. You got an ASMR channel? Good stuff. Thanks for the content. Give us advice picks for single entry tournaments. Yeah, Ain Kiv, generally speaking for single entry, at the end of the video, I am actually going to kind of build dummy build on both sites. I got DraftKings pulled up here. I got FanDuel pulled up here as well. I'll show you guys kind of my core plays. But on DK, especially, I think Kyle Fernandez is someone you're going to want. I do think Omar C is someone you're going to want, and then probably pick your side of the main event, go from there. You want to get different, but you don't need to get so different in those single entries. Again, the larger the contest, the more different you need to get. Trying to find two guys that are 20% owned or under. Appreciate you, Gil. Good take on Imavov. Yeah, I like him in front of the home crowd. And again, if Cal didn't cut weight twice in a couple of weeks, I may have been on that side. But I've been really impressed by Imavov and the improvements he's made lately. So appreciate you guys. Definitely keep the questions coming in. And Kiv, I will go into that single entry build a little bit more. That's kind of how I build most of my lineups. So when we go through that dummy build at the end, I'm hoping that gives you the answer you're looking for. But let's get back into the fight by fight breakdown here, guys. We got Jones, Oki, McKee, Sola. Another interesting one here. We got a newcomer here. Robert Ruchala coming over from Poland. We've seen a lot of Polish fighters have success in the UFC. We're about to talk about one a little bit in Marcin Tybura. We got Jan Blachowicz. We also have Joanna Jacek, Queen of Violence. There's been a lot of good Polish fighters in the UFC. And I will say this, of all the regional promotions, if you guys are MMA fans, you ever get a chance to tune into KSW, their production is amazing. Really, really impressive stuff from them, from the announcing, even though you can't understand it, to the walkouts. The crowds are always full. Ruchala has been a double champ for KSW. Actually, no, not a double champ. Featherweight champion twice. Capturing the interim title two separate times, but defending that title his last time out at KSW 100, a card I did watch. He's solid, though, against pretty bad competition, and that's kind of the issue here. He's taking on a fighter in William Gomez, who honestly I do not like. I think he's boring, but he is very good at that point fighting style, good at hitting guys and not getting hit, doesn't have a lot of power, not super dangerous when it comes to his grappling or anything like that, but great footwork. And that is the name of the game in this fight. This is the biggest gap in footwork I think we're going to see in a while. We could go back to the Volkov against Sergey Pavlovich fight, one that I predicted wrong, where Pavlovich's footwork was completely exposed against the guy Volkov who had really solid footwork. Obviously, this fight at a much lower weight class. But when you watch Ruchala on film, this guy is crossing his legs more than anyone should. He is going to be the more aggressive and powerful striker here, but he's going to have trouble closing the distance, in my opinion, on Gomes. I think Gomes is going to be able to just kind of circle away, pick him apart at range, touch and go, touch and go. Does that score well in DFS? Not necessarily. Maybe he can find a KO, but I don't know. 9K for Gomes doesn't feel good to me here. At the same time, I do like him as a parlay piece. I do think he gets it done. Again, Ruchala, super aggressive, fun fighter. Going to have fun fights in the UFC. I do think he's UFC level, but his footwork's going to be exposed here against the point fighter in Gomes, in my opinion. Whenever you're watching film, if you see a guy crossing their legs, it's just a bad sign. He has some offensive grappling ability, but not enough that I think he's going to be able to take Gomes down with any sort of consistency. So while I like Gomes here, I think he's a side. Probably gets it done via decision if you're looking for a bet on this fight. Ruchala would probably need to crash into the pocket, get a lucky KO, but the footwork here is just such a wide gap, in my opinion. I have trouble expecting anything but a Gomes decision. A fight you're definitely going to want exposure to for DFS purposes. Coming up here, we got Omar C taking on Brenson Ribeiro. Shouts out to Brian, going to take the sip of water. Always tough doing these shows solo. NBA season, we always got two guys going, but these UFC shows and the showdown ones, Brian, do definitely understand the water sip more and more as I do these. But Omar C coming off a pretty disappointing performance against Alonzo Menifield, where he just didn't do much. I mean, it was a competitive fight, but Menifield kind of perennially ranked at 205 pounds. So it was a little bit surprising to see how wide that line was, but it kind of played out, I think, as some expected it to. He was just overpriced there, wasn't able to get his kind of super aggressive pressure style going. See a good grappler, one of the better grapplers, I think, in the division, if I'm being completely honest, but somewhat tentative. Like he's a little bit afraid to go to that part of his game. But yeah, all that being said, I think this is a bounce back spot for him. This is a card in Paris. C is a French prospect. They are looking to build him. And he's taking on a guy in Bretson Ribeiro who I have just not been at all impressed by. I will say this about Ribeiro is he's aggressive. He's willing to go into that fire and hopefully come out with a win when he goes in there. But yeah, Killer be killed style doesn't work when you don't really have a chin. Ribeiro doesn't really have a chin. I think he gets caught here. I could also see him losing via submission as well. C, one of my favorite payups, but if we look at some of the data here, again, Omar C, 9,500 on DK, 23 on FanDuel. One of the most expensive, if not the most expensive play, but he has the highest OF index rating on the slate. And again, guys, check the links in the description below to get access to the model where you have OF index. It's going to kind of show you the upside of these plays. He's also going to be pretty popular, I imagine. 35% owned on DK, probably similar on FanDuel, one of the more popular captains there as well. But I think he's an excellent play. He's definitely a building block for me. Like I said, I do think Ribeiro has that puncher's chance. If you're playing 100 lineups, you could put Ribeiro in a couple. If you're playing a ton of C, getting over the field in terms of ownership, but I think Omar C gets it going here. I think he gets back in the win column. And again, there's French fighters on this card for a reason. They want to kind of promote the sport within their home country. I picked Solo last time in that fight that I broke down. Not super confident in him. I do like him though, and he does show really well in OF Index. So get your Frenchies in. Definitely like Omar C here. I think he rolls through Ribeiro fairly dominantly, if I'm being completely honest. Speaking of the Polish fighters, we got Marcin Tybura here taking on a newcomer in Ante Dalia. Dalia is new to the UFC, but probably not new to some of you who watch the PFL on ESPN. This guy won the tournament in 2022. There were a few injuries in the division that year. I think he beat, I forget who he beat, Scheffel or someone, not very good at all. But this is a guy who's been good. He's been solid. But you look at the wins he's had. I mean, he's taken on guys like Maurice Green, Jorgen De Castro, a bunch of UFC rejects. But these are two guys who are kind of similar in style. So Dalia has that sambo background. He can grapple a little bit. His striking is more of a means to kind of get to that grappling. Likes to cage push. But yeah, I mean, again, just not taking on the same level of competition that his opponent in this fight is in Marcin Tybura. Excuse me, still getting over a cold here. But Tybura's kind of been one of the best gatekeepers in the heavyweight division. And I mean, gatekeepers aren't all created equal, right? We're going to talk about one in Sam Hughes at the end of this breakdown, where if you can beat Sam Hughes, you can be ranked at strawweight. And it's like if you could beat Jared Cannonier, you could be top 5 in middleweight. If you could beat Marcin Tybura, you could be a top 10 heavyweight. And he's turned back the clock on some of these guys, Mick Parkin, Jonathan Denise, losing to Spivak, who was top 10, losing to Aspinall, who ends up the champion. But other than that, I mean, he's taking out a lot of guys, kind of exposing them. And I think that's what we're going to see here. One of the more evenly lined fights on this card. And I get it. It's heavyweights. Heavyweights tend to be more volatile than any weight class. But I do think these are similar fighters. And I do think the skill gap is in favor of Tybura. The question here for me is, will Tybura try to lean on his takedown and grappling ability? Only a 33% takedown accuracy, which is not great. Only landing 1.3 takedowns per 15 minutes. Again, not great, but he's trying it against pretty high level of opponents. So I'm hoping we see that from him here. He did secure takedowns in 3 of his last 4 fights. All 3 of those fights wins. I'm hoping his team sees that trend as well. If he's securing takedowns, he's winning fights. D'Elia, while he does have that Sambo background, isn't that hard to take down. We've seen him taken down in the PFL against kind of a mixed level of competition. So he's priced as an underdog here on DK. One of my favorite plays today is going to be Tybura. If this does go to the cards, he may not score all that great, but I do think he has ground and pound or submission upside. Um, Tybura is going to be the pick for me. And again, it's heavyweights, it's volatile. You probably shouldn't have zero exposure to a walking trouble on D'Elia here, but to me, yeah, I mean, he's younger, but he doesn't look it. Um, Tybura, I mean, he looks fine for 39-year-old heavyweight. I'm fine going to him here. I don't think D'Elia is top 10 material. And that's pretty much the question that's being asked by the UFC in this spot. I do like that the UFC is bringing in some of these okay to good PFL winners and heavyweights. But I mean, I don't know. Historically, they haven't fared all that well. Felipe Wins won the heavyweight tournament, got completely washed out of the UFC heavyweight division, and the UFC heavyweight division isn't great right now. Went down to 205, had mixed results there, and he was on steroids. So what does that say? But yeah, I don't rate D'Elia all that high. He's had some decent wins in PFL, but Tybura has been a money machine for me. I don't even think I have him as the best bet this week. We'll get to those in a little bit. But yeah, he's going to be the pick for me. Super important fight for DFS here coming up between Kyle Fernandez and Harry Hardwick. Fernandez was originally supposed to take on Frez ZM, which is why he is priced at just 6,800. Harry Hardwick, I mean, if you're a Cage Warriors fan, you know this guy. There's 2 Hardwick, George and Harry. These guys like to talk a lot. There's this viral clip of them talking shit about Anthony Smith, saying, "Why does he get to be Lionheart?" No, no, no. And yeah, I don't know. They're funny guys. They're fun. They're marketable. Not quite like Patty Pimblett, but in some ways, I get the accent. They're on social media talking their shit. But again, like a lot of these guys coming over from Cage Warriors just really haven't seen the type of competition that they're going to see in the UFC. And Hardwick will. This fight's at lightweight, right? I think he's up a weight class. I mean, he's been fighting mostly at 145 pounds. He's huge for a 145 pounder. But at 155, I don't think that's going to be much of an advantage for him at all. Fernandez, we spoke about him earlier, beat Guram Kutaladze last time out, went over Yaya prior to that. Lost to Dean Casey, who was taken down a few times. But yeah, I think he probably gets it done here. I mean, again, Hardwick taking this fight on short notice, not the biggest travel distance for him to go from England to France. But yeah, I think Fernandez is the side. He's around minus 200, and we're getting him at 6,800. So I'm going to pull up a little excerpt from the plug here. Shouts out to Derek Phillips. All things considered, Fernandez actually does not rate out very well in the DraftKings model, despite having the 6th best odds to win and finish, only 10th in OF Index. We like this fight stylistically, though, for him. Um, but hard work does look live, and low risk, this is an easy decision. Fernandez 50+% owned. Pretty much play him in any DraftKings contest and just move on. So yeah, to Derek's point, I mean, Hardwick's scrappy, right? This guy does come forward. He is well rounded. He can grapple. He can strike. Bit of a slow starter though, if you kind of watch him. Very hittable. I think that's going to cause trouble for him here. So I am on the Fernandez side. I think Hardwick probably belongs in the UFC, but he's not going to have a ton of success. I don't really see him as a future ranked fighter or anything like that. And while Hardwick is the debutant, he's actually the older fighter here as well. We've seen Harry kind of struggle at times against much lower level of opponents. I never rated Fernandez all that highly, but I think in this particular matchup, if he performs like he did against Guram, he should be able to run through him here. Maybe doesn't get the finish again. Hardwick is super durable and tough, but I do think Fernandez at 6,800, one of the better DFS plays on the slate. If we're looking at FanDuel, I think they waited to price these guys, which is nice. Yeah, Fernandez 17 over here, which is where he should be. So the misprice is on DK. We're seeing that reflected in the ownership, though. So just keep that in mind. Highest owned play on the slate, higher owned than the main event, 50% owned Fernandez. But he's going to be in almost all of my lineups. I will say in lineups without him, it is wise to play Harry because you're still getting an underdog, only 7,500. But yeah, I do imagine this fight ends up optimal more often than not, 6,800. for a winner. Even if they don't score that well, 70, 80 fantasy points is probably enough to stay optimal there. So I do think Cal gets it done. Let's take a look here at chat, guys. Again, appreciate you all tuning in on a Saturday morning. Going to pull up Sam Patterson, and we'll talk about that one in just a minute. Um, Volume is low on YouTube from Immaculate. Appreciate you. Gonna pull these headphones out of my neck. I do have a decent a microphone. I just gotta set it up. Brian with the water here. Shouts out. Um, Okay, and here's the question I wanted to pull up. So, John Connor, thanks for the early show. When you get to Fernandez, if you're doing 150 and had to pick, would you rather have 100% or zero? 100 for me. But here's what I would do. If I had 150, I would put him in 120 and I'd put Hardwick in 30. That's kind of how I do it. And again, I'm someone who likes to take firm stands. I haven't been MMEing UFC that much. I do prefer to play single entry, but starting to wrap my head around it again. And we do have the multi lineup builder here at Occupy if you do have access. But yeah, I would probably prefer 100 if I had to go one way or the other. But personally, I'd go like 120 and then have 30 Hardwick. Again, Hardwick is a live underdog, and he's priced as an underdog. You're getting both guys in this fight priced as underdogs. So for me, I'd go heavy Fernandez, but get some Hardwick in there as the hedge. Would be a little bit surprising to me if that fight wasn't optimal on DK. On FanDuel, you're fine to just leave it off. Another fight that I think you're fine to probably just leave off here, using that as a way to transition. We got Brad Tavares taking on Robert Burchak. So Tavares is actually going for the middleweight record for wins in the UFC. He'd surpassed Michael Bisping here, coming off that win over Gerald Mearshart. Pretty ugly matchup. It's funny, he was actually quote unquote cut from the UFC. Not really. His contract ended. They just waited to renegotiate. So he was never cut. He's back, but he's certainly past his prime. We talk about gatekeepers. I mean, Tavares used to be kind of the top 15 gatekeeper at 185 pounds. I think he's a little bit past that now. But I mean, the recent losses to Gregory Rodriguez, Iron Turtle, I mean, they're kind of forgivable. The performance against Bruno Silva was terrible, but we're going back 2-3 years now, so I don't want to dig too deeply into that. I think he is the side here. And we talked about footwork earlier when we were talking about the Gomes fight. I think we're going to see a little bit of that here as well. So Burchik is the bigger, stronger, more muscle-bound fighter, does have some power, but Tavares' chin is an absolute brick, and Burchik's footwork is absolutely terrible. And while Tavares is getting up there in age, Burchik only a couple years younger, and coming off a loss to Ihor Potieria. And yeah, I mean, friends don't let friends pick guys who have lost to Ihor Potieria. I think it's as easy as that. But Tavares, where he's priced, I mean, kind of terrible in terms of DFS. Even when he's winning, not scoring well at all. 51 fantasy points against Mearshart, 58 against Weidman. I was actually at that fight live, not all that entertaining. And then Akhmedov, 75. I mean, even when this guy's winning, he's never paying off that price tag. Could he suddenly get a finish here? Sure. But yeah, just a fight I'm mostly avoiding, if I'm being completely honest. Two more fights here, guys. I forgot to pull off John's comment here. Sorry about that. And then I will get into the best bets. We'll do a dummy build on both sites, making good time today. But two more fights here, and this next one's pretty interesting because Renat Fakhretdinov has been on a tear. Should he be, though, I guess is the question. That win over Carlos Leal deserves an asterisk, maybe one of the worst decisions of 2024. The win over Dalby was really close as well, had the draw against Aleski dos Santos. Wins over Battle Lee. I know I'm just going through the whole game log now, kind of ridiculous, but he's been good, and he gets his takedowns. He's a good grappler, dangerous on the feet. We saw him take out Kevin Lee in seconds. But I think at that point, his stock was as high as it ever was going to be. But the thing about Fakhretdinov is he does seem to fade as his fights wear on. We've seen in the Leal and Dalby and Dos Santos fights, this guy barely has 15 minutes of cardio. And he's taking on a fighter here in Gustafsson who is an absolute marauder. Skill, I don't know. Toughness, certainly. Aggression, absolutely. Nicknamed Bane for a reason. This guy is a beast. He's going to go in there, push him up against the cage, coming off a great win over Chaos Williams. Pretty tough out, in my opinion, where he scored really well, even with that fight going to decision. Had 8 takedowns of his own. I think Gustafsson probably loses the first round here, but from there, I think he's going to build and probably either be able to finish this fight late or get it done via decision. At the same time, I mean, Fakhretdinov, I don't know if he's friends with the judges or what. It doesn't matter where he is. He does seem to get the nod when these fights are going to the scorecards. But I really do think Gustafsson here is someone I want to be getting to in DFS. At the same time, you got to get to Renan as well. I mean, they both just score really well when they're winning. And if we're looking at some of the graphics here, Fakhretdinov actually a 102 OF index rating. A little bit surprising to me. But if he is able to survive the 15 minutes, he's probably going to have a bunch of takedowns. He does throw volume. And yeah, not all that popular. So I have the model on my other screen, just checking this out really quickly. 23% owned for Renat compared to 34 for Gustafsson. So I was hoping there would be some leverage there. It looks like the leverage is actually going to the Fakhretdinov side. So yeah, tricky fight. I do want to have exposure to both of these guys. Again, somewhat binary in that Renat's the better grappler, but I also think it's binary in that early we're going to see Renat doing really well, and late we're going to see Gustafsson doing really well. So probably get exposures to both sides of this one. I wouldn't be shocked to see Renat find an early submission. I wouldn't be shocked to see him find an early ground and pound KO. But if Gustafsson can kind of extend this, I do think he's going to take over as this fight wears on. So Gustafsson's the pick for me. One more fight here, guys. Then we will get into the best bets, the fight by fight breakdown, or not fight by fight breakdown. A quick build on both sites, and I will kind of build for single entry. Sam Hughes here taking on Sean Bannon. I haven't been bringing up all the odds for these, but you guys kind of get my leads. Just to kind of recap quickly: Sam Patterson around minus 180, Fernandez minus 210, Tybura 120. Renat is the underdog around plus 110. I'm taking Gustafsson around minus 130. And then here we have Sam Hughes, excuse me, floating around minus 270 to minus 300. Again, apologize for the cough, guys, getting over a cold. Coming off some solid wins, though, over Dudikova and Yasmin Lucindo. Taking on a fighter in Sean Abandon, who had a nice win over Pooja Tumar, a fight she was head kicked, almost KO'd in, ended up on her back and then caught Tumar in an armbar. To me, Bannon is just not really UFC level. I know she has 2 wins in the UFC, so it's kind of tough to say that. But Sam Hughes is that gatekeeper now. If you can't beat Sam Hughes, you'll never be a top 15 fighter at strawweight. If you can, you probably deserve to be there. Yeah, apologize, guys. But yeah, Hughes, not great anywhere, but good everywhere. Also a safe Saeed in her corner. And a really coachable fighter. It's like Saif is in there with the video game controller. She does what he says, very different than some of his other fighters, like Ryan Spawn or Kennedy Njoku. Sam Hughes, really coachable. And it's funny that that's one of the best things I could say about her. But against someone like Shauna Bannon, I think that's enough. I think Saif can tell her what to do. She's going to listen. She's going to be the better striker, better grappler. No matter where this one goes, she should be able to get it done. Again, this is relatively low level women's MMA. Not to be sexist or anything, but that just creates volatility. So proceed with some caution. But I think at her ownership, Hughes is more appealing to me than, say, a Brad Tavares. Hughes is more appealing to me than some of these other expensive plays. I think she's a higher floor than Roofy. So I do like her exposure, or I do like getting exposure to her in DFS. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so we're through the fight by fight breakdown. Let's do a quick dummy build on both sites, and then I will get into my best bets. All right, so on FanDuel first, MVP, unlike NFL, you're not paying more for your captain. So I do think Omar Sy is my favorite. Um, like I said, I think you could go either way, Imavov or Barallo. I'm going Imavov in front of the home crowd. I think you want one of those two in most of your lineups. Let's see what else we have going here. Tybor to me. Price is the underdog. Sorry to keep coughing, guys. Again, getting over this cold. 14 to me is just underpriced. Really like that. We're left with 16 per fighter. I think Patterson's line for the submission, someone I'd be comfortable mixing in. And then maybe we go with, I don't know, someone like Renat over here or Gustafsson. Gustafsson, Jones. You can go to Sola. I really like this build. We're looking at Sai, Imavov, Tabora, Patterson, Gustafsson, Jones. Kind of mix and match these last few spots. It's going to be similar over on DK. Imavov, 7,800. Uh, Again, if you don't want to go Imavov on both sides, I'm fine going to Barallo. Kind of the no-brainer play of the week, though, is Cal Fernandez. Again, priced like he's facing for Azeem, but he's facing Harry Hardwick. I want him in almost all of my DK builds. I still think Sai's my favorite play. Would love to get the Sam Hughes if we can. And since we went with Gustafsson on FanDuel, maybe we go with Renat on DK. That leaves us with 88. We could pick between Patterson, Roofy, Jones. I don't know. Let's go with Roofy since we went with Patterson on the other site. Something like this. Again, it's really easy to build this week, especially on DK, with that piece of Fernandez value. So, all right, guys, best bets now. This is my favorite part of the show. This is where I really try to shine. So let's take a quick look last week. The record down here is wrong. It does update on the next slide, but we went 4-1. Um, I think the only one we got wrong was the main event to win round one. Obviously, Johnny Walker pulled that off, but we had Sterling by decision, Crosby fight under, Young Lachate over, Su Young Yu money line. And we also hit two long shots. We had the Yizak KO and Kyle Dawkins. The fact that I had Charles Johnson by decision here hurts. He won by KO, almost had three of those long shots. But yeah, coming off a really solid week is pretty much the point I'm getting at. Best bets this week. So Sam Hughes, I don't want to pay minus 300 for, right? You don't want to pay minus 270. DK has these point spreads. It also covers if she gets the finish. So her to win minus 3.5, minus 125, that's value to me. Patterson versus Waters, under 2.5 rounds. Patterson finding the finish in almost all of his wins. Waters does have KO upside here, so I'm pretty comfortable going with just the under 2.5. Braun Tavares by decision, minus 105, near even money for a guy who's floating around minus 250. I think last I checked, where is he? Yeah, minus 230, minus 240, as low as minus 200, depending on your book. But just a guy who doesn't tend to find finishes, so I'm comfortable getting close to even money for him. Side by KO or sub, one of my favorite bets on the card, minus 150. Great value, in my opinion. Then Bukowskis versus Craig doesn't start round three, minus 140. Again, guys, I will never give a best bet that is minus 200 or wider. I like to give you guys kind of close to even money on these. And yeah, really, really like all of them. Sam Hughes, Patterson, Waters under, Tavares decision, side by KO sub. Bukowskis versus Craig doesn't start round three. Where's my long shots? I had long shots. Trying to find them here. Bear with me, guys. Just a second. I know I created the slide. Just don't know where it went. Here we go. Sorry about that. All right, here's the long shots. Hughes versus Bannon under 2.5. I think Hughes could finish her. If Bannon were to win, it would be some gross Hail Mary armbar or something. I don't think it's very likely. But again, these are long shots. Just sprinkle on these. Don't go crazy. Tybora by KO or sub. Mason Jones by KO or sub. And then Imavov by KO. Again, I think the most likely outcome is Tybora by decision, Jones by decision, Imavov by decision. But when you're getting these types of prices, it's usually worth taking a little bit of a sprinkle. Same with Hughes. I think she probably wins by decision, but one of these fights is probably going to finish. And if two of these hit, you're in the green just playing the long shots. But again, if you're playing anything this week, keying on the best bets here. We got Sam Hughes, Patterson. I'm not going to say him for the fifth time, but really do appreciate you guys. Any last minute questions, feel free to hit me in the Discord. You could also follow me on Twitter at Nick Morrow DFS. I do always tweet out my picks there. But yeah, I'm going to be in the Discord grinding away here. We got NFL behind the paywall as well. We got a great team there for that. But check the links in the description below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Have fun today. Enjoy these fights. Enjoy college football. Enjoy the NFL tomorrow. 'Tis the season, man. Sports equinox. Really enjoying it and always enjoy getting in here and breaking down these fights with you guys. I think we have UFC Noche next week, so I'll be back. Let us know what you think about the timing too. Do you like it the morning of the fights? Do you like it the night before? I know we get more views night before just because more people can kind of get access to it that way. But I think we had a pretty good group here in live today. So again, appreciate you guys. Check the links in the description. Follow me on Twitter. Have fun.